Hey guys, welcome back to Rad JBI. I'm JB. This is one of my favorite videos that I can't wait to release. It's something I've been working on for the past 5 years. To the left of me, I have the WP AER 48, also branded as the Exact 48 Air Fork. To our knowledge, it is the lightest existing production fork that's available for motocross and off-road riding. With our JBI spec kits, we're able to take this fork that is relatively light, not too much, and turn it into a fork that many people do appreciate and do like to run. Now, it maybe doesn't perform as good as some of our spring fork options, but we feel like we've done a pretty good job tuning it to work pretty dang close and at a very reasonable price as well. Well, anyways, we have figured out a way to take the already lightest forks available and somehow shave off another 1.5 pounds of weight. So we're going to soon turn these forks into the lightest forks in the world that I know of that you can use for motocross and off-road riding. So stay tuned. We're going to dig in to what is inside of this cardboard tube. All right, before we get into what is inside this cardboard tube right here, first, let's take a weight measurement of what these forks actually weigh, so that way we have something to compare it to once we are done building these. So right now we are weighing the damper side of these forks. Cool, now that we've weighed the damper side, let's weigh the air side. So we've determined that the damping side of the forks weighs approximately 7.8 pounds, and the air side of the forks weighs approximately 6.7 pounds. Now that makes a lot of sense because on the damping side, we also have oil in the outer chamber, and we also have oil on the inner chamber of the hydraulic damper. And oil weighs substantially more than just air, because on this side, the air cartridge is only filled with a little bit of grease and, again, air, as the name implies. So it makes sense that there is just over a pound difference between these two forks. So what we have inside of here is something I've been working on for the past 5 years. And what really started off the reason for us to even make this item in the first place was that a lot of our business is doing custom builds. And by that, I mean people have come to like being able to customize the aesthetic of the forks that we build for them. Meaning we can do different colored lower tubes, different colored upper tubes. We can anodize or Cerakote the lower lugs. So we can really give you that kind of white glove service and allow you to really personalize your suspension to match the aesthetic that you're building for your bike. Now with these custom coatings, there's often a lead time tied to that as well. And oftentimes it's about 4 weeks. Sometimes it's up to 7 weeks for it. And I realized if we could somehow offer some of these components already made and already coated, we could reduce that lead time to the same lead time it normally would for us doing our standard JBI suspension revalve here at the shop. So when it came to that time, about 5 years ago, I decided we should make our own lower tubes and just have these on hand already coated. So the first thing I did is I had to figure out, well, what are these lower tubes made out of? So that way we can find the same exact material so we can replicate exactly what the OEMs did. Because one thing I'm not trying to do is alter the flex characteristics on how the suspension performs. There's not a rabbit hole we really want to go down, and they perform well enough as is. Well, once I figured out with some help with some friends exactly the material that these lower tubes are made out of, a light bulb kind of went off in my head because I was like, wow, if they can get away with that medium grade of material, and by medium I mean that in two different ways. I mean that in terms of the amount of carbon that is alloyed with the steel tube, and also medium grade as in what that name implies, like medium strength. For comparison's sake, the frame under KTM is made out of chromoly steel, and we would consider that a high grade steel. And in that case, when we're referencing strength, how hard it is to bend it, how far you can bend it before it breaks, it has a lot of very positive attributes that you'd want from a frame. Also going along with that, the material itself is very expensive compared to a lower grade steel that's out there. So once I found out what this was made out of, I was like, man, you know what? If back in the day, WP was making these lower tubes about 52 millimeters big, you may have heard of them. They call them the WP 52 mil forks. What a lot of people don't know was those forks, since they were 52 millimeters, this lower tube is actually made out of aluminum. And that's one of the reasons why it was so big, because they had to make a very thick wall thickness for that tube, so it actually wouldn't bend or break during normal riding for motocross and supercross. So I kind of thought about that for a bit, and I was like, well, if they can make them out of aluminum, I bet you there's one more material out there that we can likely find a certain alloy of this material and ensure that it's processed and post-processed in certain ways that we can definitely match, if not possibly slightly exceed, the same properties of this lower tube. So I think I've edged you guys on long enough. Let's unbox this, take a look at what's inside, and I'll break down to you exactly what it is. So if you guessed it's made out of carbon fiber, you're right. Just kidding, it is not. Which way should we go with this? Let's go this way. These are officially a new product we've been working on for the past 5 years. This is the JBI Titanium WP fork tube. As you can see, it has a beautiful titanium nitride finish on the outside too. We do that for 2 reasons. 1, it looks awesome. 2, it improves the hardness of this fork tube as well. Because if we just kept it bare titanium with no outside coating on it, it wouldn't be as hard as hard chromium, which is on your existing tubes, and it'd be much more susceptible to scratches and nicks. So we wanted to make sure we still had a coating on the outside surface that was as smooth, if not smoother, and as hard, if not harder, than the stock chrome tubes that you have. So as you can see, it's very similar to the production tube in terms of dimensions. We have some minor differences in terms of the necking along here and how long that continues for. The biggest takeaway though is going to be the weight reduction. So we'll throw these up on a scale. And I also have another tube, which is a OEM WP tube that also has been titanium coated as well. Not that it affects the weight, but just to show you an exact comparison between our JBI titanium tube and a WP OEM steel tube. Cool. So I got my trusty scale to the left of me. And before we weigh these 2 things, let's take a short trip down memory lane and show you guys exactly where we've been and how we got to where we are today. Now, to the left of me, I have 2 other tubes that are made out of titanium. These were some of the early production batches that I ever had made. For the first one, you can see this is a DLC finish, but it has more of a gray finish to it. At the time, we were experimenting with different surface finishes, and I mean that in 2 different ways. One, I mean it as in terms of how the tube was finished while it was in raw form. So the surface roughness of the tube before any coating was applied. This is what we got for one of those surface finishes. I'm not going to tell you exactly what it is, but it came out pretty good, but you can just feel it by touch. That by no means was it as smooth as a OEM chrome tube or as smooth as a chrome tube with our JBI DLC applied to that. So we took what we learned from this, and then we had another set of tubes made, and then this was the next batch that came. And as you can see, there's definitely a difference in the color kind of glossiness and the tone between the 2. This one having a much more kind of wet black look to it. And if you're here to feel it by hand, you can tell it is very slick, very similar to a chrome tube. So at this point, we had really started to hone in how we needed to post-process these tubes in order to get the outside surface finish to be of the quality we wanted to before we even applied a coating on top of it. Because with these coatings, such as DLC or titanium, the finish of the coating is heavily going to be dependent upon the surface you apply it on. So if you apply it on a surface that's not as smooth and is rough, then that coating is not going to smooth out that surface. This is going to replicate that. So these are some tubes I had made back in like 2021. And we ran this tube along with this other matching tube on a set of air forks. So this isn't the first one we're doing, but on some old ones for about 100 hours or so, just as our kind of proof of concept. We want to see how the tubes worked. And they worked flawlessly. I'd also let people ride my bike, and I wouldn't even tell them that there are tied tubes on there, just so they could test the suspension settings on it. And everybody was really pleased with the air fork settings that we were developing at that time. So that's a little trip down memory lane to kind of give you guys an idea of how long you've been working on this, and that this wasn't a home run first try. I've destroyed and ruined many tubes and spent, to me, a lot of money investing in these, figuring out how exactly to get them made. Now, in the end, I decided to go with the titanium nitride coating. One, because DLC is commonly available, And two, I just think gold just looks really, really cool. So right here, I have an original WP tube. That's a fucking lie. This is a Showa one. All right, guys. So this is the WP tube. My mistake earlier. I do have a titanium nitride steel tube in stock, but it's actually one from a Showa fork. So that would not be a fair comparison. I do have a WP tube. It's in my hand. It's not titanium nitride coated, but trust me, the coating itself has very, very little addition of weight to it. So let's get this on the scale and see where it comes out to be. It's been a while since I've done this, so I've kind of forgot, but we'll do it in ounces first, and let's see what we get. So what do you guys think our JBI titanium fork tube is going to weigh? It's that light, almost through the window. Just kidding. So we got this zeroed out again. Let's throw it on the scale. Holy shit. That's quite a bit. Let's do it again. So 23.1 ounces. Now I tend to have in mind of a goldfish, so I already forgot what this one weighs. That was 23. This one is 35. So what's the difference on that? About 13 ounces. And I believe there are 16 ounces in a pound. So one fork tube itself is almost an entire pound. So I guess earlier when I said we're going to shave about 1.5 pounds was a little misleading. It's going to be a little bit closer to 2 pounds on these forks. Now, earlier I talked about choosing a titanium alloy, which I'm not going to tell you which one it is. I worked really freaking hard figuring out which one. But I did find a titanium alloy that has very similar properties as the original WP steel tube here. And let's be a little more specific about that. What do I mean is by how stiff the tube is, so how much force is required to make the tube flex. How much you can bend the tube before it breaks. They call this elongation when it comes to material data. The way I was able to do this was, one, by doing some research into the different available titanium alloys, and then also pairing that with the different ways of how you can process the metal during manufacturing, and also how you can post-process the metal after the tube has been manufactured. What I mean by that is after the tube has been machined, grinded, bored to the dimensions and sizing you see here, there's other post-processes you can do on that as well. Some of those are heat treating, annealing. There's different styles and variations of that, but we spent the time to figure out exactly what we need to do in order to replicate this type of tube. Because again, the main reason for this was I wanted to offer tubes to you guys without having to wait on us to do any coatings. And we're offering some different colors besides gold as well. When it came to time to do that, we figured, why not make the best tube out there that we can? So that way you're gonna shave about 2 pounds on your forks. You have a tube that would never do this. See how there's rust on the outside right here? And that's just gonna happen in any steel tube over time. Titanium is very inert. It doesn't interact with many different things, and it's not gonna rust. So now we have a tube that's never gonna rust, lighter than stock, possesses all the properties that you would want it to, and it looks freaking awesome. And I think we're gonna bring these tubes in at a price point that it'll be a higher cost than you sending in your existing tubes for us to coat, but it'll be cheaper than as if you went out and bought brand new tubes from WP and then sent those tubes to us to get coated. Man, this is really fun to share with you guys because I've been working on this for a long time. We did another unboxing video about 8 months ago, and our first production batch of tubes had a minor flaw in them, which was my fault, just something I overlooked on the dimension. And Anthony was filming, I was so excited, and he could just see the joy out of my eyes just fade away. So we had to wait another 8 months for those to get made, but now we're here. So what we're gonna do next is we are going to tear down these forks where I put them, and we're gonna do a couple things. We're gonna get these tubes installed in place of these, and I think we're gonna do a few other coatings as well. In my mind, I'm thinking red and gold's gonna look really cool. So I'm gonna send out these upper tubes to get a nice blood red anodize. We'll probably do a blood red Cerakote on the bottom of the fork legs as well. And then we'll tie it together with some of our JBI gold titanium bolts in this area also. And then of course, on the inside, and I can't stress this enough, is as cool as the stuff looks on the outside, we put more attention into what goes on the inside, meaning as cool as it's going to look, it's going to perform even better. And our JBI WP-AER 48 air fork kits are something we've worked really hard on since they came out in 2016, meaning this type of fork. And we've really developed some high performing settings for them at a very fair cost. So I'm excited to take what's already the lattice production fork, cut off about 2 more pounds of that, improve the dampening performance of it, and then we're going to go out and bolt this on some lucky guy's bike and get some testing and feedback from them, and then share that video with you. So let's get into breaking these forks down, getting them stripped down as well, and start this process along. Now for us, we got to wait a lot. For you guys, you just have to wait for the second video to come out, and bam, you get to see how it ends. So thanks for tuning in. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'm sure a lot of you, I'm breaking your mind right now because you're thinking, what? Titanium fucking fork tubes? Please bleep that out. But yes, indeed, they exist. As far as I know, we're the only ones to make and manufacture this product. And over the course of time, we will be making the tubes for also KYB and Showa model forks as well. And then also we might have some of our own JBI upper fork tubes coming out, just maybe. So thank you guys tuning in. I feel incredibly lucky to do what I do and have your guys' support as customers and as friends and as peers. We all love riding dirt bikes, especially me, especially my coworker behind the camera right now, and be able to do this and build some really cool stuff. It's just very rewarding, and we feel very fortunate to do it. So thanks for tuning in, man, and until next time.